Right, I've got a craft challenge to do today. I have this pack of coasters. I think these are just MDF, yeah, 10 by 10. And I thought I would make some picture book placemats, like coasters. So I've never done this before. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I have got my scissors, I've got my Modge Podge, I've got a leftover book from some flowers that I made several years ago. Yes, it was quite cute. I got to make some wedding bouquets using the Gruffalo picture book. So these aren't very thick. I might put some feet on the bottom. I think I've got some of those as well. Let's go and take a look. So, I guess step one, it would be useful if I had a pencil. So these are great, aren't they? They're just great. I'm just trying to measure it so that I get all of the Gruffalo on the coaster, and I'm going to draw around the coaster. And this is not a tutorial, by the way. This is me just challenging myself to do something different with all of these leftover bits and pieces that I've got. I've got so many books and things and craft equipment that I actually just definitely need to use some of it up, and if I can't use it all up, I might have to donate it. Right. I might have been better off drawing around this in a permanent ink, because that was quite hard to see the pencil on the coloured paper. Does it fit? Do I need to trim it some more? Yeah, I wouldn't actually call that a perfect fit, would you? You see there's an edge around there. Already I just kind of think these are going to be quite cute. So in the past I've had issues where Modge Podge hasn't been very good for covering things with book pages, regular novels. So I'm going to try two different types here. I'm going to try one with Modge Podge and one with high-tack glue. So yeah. Let's find another picture. I didn't have a permanent marker to hand, so I've just drawn round that in biro. That is much easier to see. So past experience from past makes tells me I really don't want any overhang where these could lift up. And if I can get these perfect, then I don't think I need to cover the sides. But I might try another one covering the sides. Ha, okie dokie. Modge Podge. Now then, I also this isn't a thick enough paintbrush. I don't have any thick paintbrushes left. I did try to buy some cheap paintbrushes for glue ages ago, because it can happen that they get a bit clagged up, and I couldn't find any, so I need to source some cheap paintbrushes that are still usable. So I want to make sure that the Modge Podge is completely covering the coaster and right up to the edges. Oh. Right, as you're pressing it down with the tea towel, try not to move it on the coaster. So I'm not going to put Modge Podge on the top just yet. I'm going to let that set in place for a little while. And whilst I'm doing that, I will attach this one with the high-tack glue. Now when I'm making frames, photo frames, or covering photo frames, I don't actually make the photo frames, I would tend to use the high-tack glue. I just find it's much better for attaching things, whereas the Modge Podge is infinitely better as a sealant than anything else that I have found, other than varnish. Varnish is pretty good. The high-tack glue lets you place things and still move them around if you need to, but only if you need to. So I'm making sure I've got the glue all the way around the coaster and around the edges. And again, this is not a tutorial. I don't know why I'm saying this. This is a challenge. Right. Tea towel. Press firmly. Get any air bubbles out, you see. And then just make sure it's nicely aligned. Right, so I am going to cover these with Modge Podge. This is the one I stuck down with Modge Podge, and I don't know if you can really see on camera. There's a couple of little wrinkles, maybe 3 or 4, maybe more. It's slightly raised here. Press it down, I'll see if that will help. And the one that I stuck down with the high-tack glue, I've just got one little air bubble here. I didn't press down hard enough, clearly. Anyway, I'm going to cover both of these with the Modge Podge as a sealant. I've decided I'm not going to cover the sides. Nobody looks at the underside of a coaster anyway, do they? But I have got a little bit of excess that I don't want, because this is going to happen. I'll have to glue that bit down better. But I will put sealant all around the edges, because yeah, this happens if you don't. And that's why I cover my frames with the papers, the rice papers. So I'll just run my thumb upwards along the edges, all the edges, because I want to make sure that these aren't going to fall apart in the future. So put a nice good coverage of the Modge Podge, and I'm going to try and keep going in the same direction. I might have to give this an additional coat as well. Just need to find something to rest it on whilst it dries. Coffee tin. Always got coffee tins. Right, so that's that one, and let's do the same with this one. So interestingly, this one hasn't got any peeling around the edges. That's because the high-tack glue is really good at sticking things down. Again, I've got a little bit of excess there that I need to trim off. But I suppose that's easier done at the end. So maybe if I were to make these again, maybe I'd leave the trimming until this stage. I'm sorry for the yawning. I hope I don't send that one out for everyone else to yawn. It's part of my everyday life, is feeling tired at these days. Right, let's go for it. So I'm going to leave these both to dry again, and I will come back afterwards and decide if I need to put another coat on or whether I should varnish them. I do find that sometimes Modge Podge can get a bit tacky, but you know, maybe varnish sometimes gets tacky as well. So yeah, I'm not sure what the best thing is to cover these in, but yeah, we'll take a look in a little while. So these have dried now. This one I did with glue, and there is, I don't know if you can see just here, a couple of ripples. So I have put the first layer of the matte Modge Podge on here, and that is all really firmly in place. And this one that I only used Modge Podge has a couple of ripples as well. Don't know if I can show these. There's quite a long one there, and there's also a bit of a glitch here at the bottom. So neither of these were perfect, but I think they're okay. And what would I do to improve? Well, here's the thing. I have 2 coasters left. So I have 2 coasters left, and what I thought I would do is make these slightly better. So I am going to just give these another coating of Modge Podge just to seal them, so that if you have a wet glass on there, because it happens, it won't spoil. And these 2, which you can barely see on this background, I am going to put some decoupage paper on the back, or decoupage rice papers on the back, let that dry, and then put the fronts on, because whilst you can't really see any blemishes, there's a couple of little blemishes from the glue on the back of this one, and several blemishes on the back of the one that I did with the Modge Podge. So what that implies to me is that the Modge Podge very much absorbs into this MDF board, whereas the glue doesn't. So anyway, I'm going to finish these 2 off, and I'm going to create 2 new ones. So I have these kind of like felt pads, and I'm going to put these on the back. So I will set those two aside to dry, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these two hopefully from the Gruffalo as well. I hope I've got pages that will fit, that will work well. If not, I'll have to have a look through my stash and see what I've got. But what I'm going to do in the first instance is cover what will be the back and the sides of the coasters with some of this rice paper. I am going to let these dry, and once they're dry I'll come back and I'll put some of the picture book pages on the right side, and hopefully this will give me a much better finish on these coasters. So even though these ones are adequate and hopefully will function quite well, I'm going to test them with some coffee mugs and some hot coffee mugs and see if the Modge Podge keeps them clean and good, and yeah, let's just experiment and see what happens. I need to find somewhere to put this to dry. I'll be back. Right, so we're back. I gave both of these coasters another layer of the Modge Podge just to secure them, and look, the one with the Modge Podge has started peeling up on the side there, so I'm going to have to stick that down. But the one I stuck down with the glue is very firmly in place. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to reattach that with glue. The reason being is because I am trying out these methods to see how to make, you know, the best coasters that I can. So these two were my test run coasters, and these two are the coasters that I have covered the backs on because I don't like the plain backs. They just look cheap and nasty, and you know, when you want to make something to give as a gift, you want it to look a bit nicer. So I have made these both in exactly the same way. I haven't used anything other than the Modge Podge at this stage. I'm going to see if I can find some pictures that will work on these coasters. So I'm going to go for Little Mouse. Right, that's one. Right, let's clear up this mess. So what I'm going to do is cover these with glue and then press these firmly in place, and then once they've dried off a little bit I shall trim around the excess, and then hopefully they'll be good for a couple of layers of Modge Podge. Right, Right, these are dry. There's a few wrinkles in them. I'm going to try and squidge those out. And then I'm going to just trim the edges. That's lovely. I've got a little bit of a lump here where I've folded over the rice papers too thickly, and there's one crease there. There's a few more creases in this one. I'm guessing it's because I put the glue on too thickly, and there's a big air bubble there. So yeah, these are a bit of a fail. And I've run out of coasters now, so I can't try again using less glue. I am going to cover the tops of these with some Modge Podge, and we'll see how we go. So I think the overall finish on these ones is going to be much better, apart from the wrinkles. Just because I'm about to do my next challenge, I thought this pot is slightly damp, and so I thought I'm going to test out whether 2 layers of Modge Podge is enough on a coaster without leaving a ring mark. So let's see. Right, so I just did a little bit of another project, and I had a slightly damp water pot on this coaster, and there is absolutely no damage and no water stain whatsoever. So that's fantastic. I'm really pleased with that. And so these are my 2 regular coasters, first design, and these are my 2 regular coasters, second design. I have put a second layer of Modge Podge on there, but I forgot to turn the camera on. Yeah, got carried away with that. So all I'm just going to quickly do is finish these off with a few of these in the corner. I suppose it would be nicer if these were like a cork, similar to what I used on the mosaic pot stand. However, this will just protect any surfaces, make them easier to pick up, and also make them a little less slippery on a shiny surface or a highly polished surface. So, in conclusion, I now have 4 lovely little Gruffalo coasters. There's a few wrinkles in this one, and so what I've decided to do is, I think this one's a bit of a fail because they've all got wrinkles in them, and I suspect on these 2, and I will go back and have a look, that I put the glue was too thick, and that's why I've got the little air bubbles. That's where the glue is collected. And on these 2, well, they're a lot better, and because it's been several days since I did these ones, I'm presuming I put the glue on thinner, but you probably have a better idea because you've just watched it. So I'm going to conclude this. I think gluing them down is the best way to start with, because the Modge Podge lifted up far too quickly on the edges. I think 2 layers of Modge Podge on top of the surface is totally adequate, and like I say, I just rinsed this out, so it was a little bit damp all around here, so that hasn't made a mark at all. And I prefer the ones with the rice paper on the back. They just look, they've just got a slightly better finish, haven't they? So if I am able to pick up some more coasters, I will try this again, and I will try to make them a little bit more perfect. I think I've pretty much run out of good pictures in the Gruffalo picture book at the minute, but I do have a couple of other picture books to hand, and it's just occurred to me that these might be really nice as it might be a really nice thing to try with a Beatrix Potter book. I don't know if they're going to be big enough, but anyway, I digress. So I think that's a part success for this, because I have figured out the best way of doing it. I just haven't achieved the best quality, but I still love these two, and I think I know whose Christmas stockings they're going to go in this year. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've got any ideas on how to make this process better for when I try again, do leave some comments in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from your experiences of using picture books on MDF, and also what you think of Modge Podge and the high-tack glue method that I've used here. So do give me a thumbs up if you've got this far, that would be fantastic, and yeah, hope to see you again soon.